I don't give no fuck, bitch. I'm a scumbag journalist. I go dumb, dumb, dumb. I don't give no fuck, bitch. I'm a scumbag journalist. I go dumb, dumb, dumb. I don't give no fuck, bitch. I'm a scumbag journalist. I go dumb, dumb, dumb. I don't give no fuck, bitch. I'm a scumbag journalist. I go dumb, dumb, dumb. I don't give no fuck, bitch. I'm a scumbag journalist. I go dumb, dumb, dumb. I don't give no fuck, bitch. I'm a scumbag journalist. I go dumb, dumb, dumb. Welcome to Scumbag Journalism 101. This is the Shockverse official podcast hosted by N Panda Cole, aka Dr. Shock, the Doctor of Shock. It's not just fiction, it's total shock. In today's episode, we will be discussing the history of Hunter S. Thompson and how he reinvented journalism in the late 60s, early 70s with the creation and invention of what is defined as gonzo journalism. That's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That's Hey Rube on ESPN.com, page 2. That's Hunter S. Thompson. The Aloha shirt wearing, CIA shades sporting, coke fueled, alcohol driven, investigative, inside the contamination zone reporting of Raul Duke. So, if you've never heard of Hunter S. Thompson, then let me introduce you. In the late 60s, journalism went through an evolution of what they called new journalism. New journalism utilized narrative function and in depth emotional storytelling to create functional narratives to convey reporting in the way a novel does with fiction. This was called new journalism. Put the reader in the story and take them through the narrative of what's reported. Now, what Hunter S. Thompson did was innovate on that with Gonzo. Hunter S. Thompson was an aspiring novelist. One of his greatest works of fiction is The Rum Diary, which he was writing prior to making it as a journalist. He was writing that in like I think 1958, 1959. He was living in Puerto Rico, writing for a newspaper where he had to cover bowling. He had to report on bowling, so he'd have to hang out at the bowling alley and just report on the local bowling league, right? And he wrote a novel about that called The Rum Diary, which has been adapted into a movie starring Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp was friends with Hunter S. Thompson. He lived in Hunter S. Thompson's basement. He had a fucking explosive powder keg next to the bed where he would live. It was like a little dungeon cell where Johnny Depp lived in the basement of Hunter S. Thompson's house while he was learning how to be him for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He used to ash out his cigarettes and shit, and then he realized it wasn't a nightstand. That shit was an explosive powder keg of fucking dynamite. So Hunter S. Thompson loved explosives. He loved guns. He had his own compound where he would have motherfuckers do shotgun golf, where you like hit the golf ball and then you had to shoot it with a shotgun. He had access to celebrities, politicians, everyone famous, all kinds of actors and celebrities and famous people know Hunter S. Thompson. Joe Rogan is a huge fan of Hunter S. Thompson, talks about him on his podcast a lot. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were just on there promoting their new movie, The Rip, and they opened that episode, the most recent episode of the Joe Rogan podcast, with them discussing Hunter S. Thompson. I actually found out about Hunter S. Thompson through a clip, a Joe Rogan podcast clip, where they were talking about him. I had never heard of him, but that was prior to last year. Last year, I totally immersed myself in the world of gonzo, and I've become a gonzo journalist. Last year, I published 25 books in 2025. My year of gonzo was me utilizing my own independently owned and creator ruled self publishing house, Total Shock Fiction, which I created back in 2021. Prior to last year, I'd only published 4 books over the course of 4 years. The first 3 were within about an 8-month period, and then I published another book a few months prior to 2025, around September-ish of 2024. And then last year in 2025, I ramped it up. I wrote 25 books that year. I wrote 25 books last year. The most recent being Shock Therapy, which we'll get into that. But essentially Hunter S. Thompson, his name became widely known, and this is how he, achieved a certain level of fame through his book Hell's Angels, which came out in 1966. This was his first gonzo investigation. What he did was he lived among the Hells Angels motorcycle club, the notorious bikers, the Hells Angels. He lived with them for about a year, reporting on them, recording tapes. If you listen to the gonzo tapes, the early gonzo tapes, or his actual recordings from when he was living among the Hells Angels, and he took that reporting and he wrote a book called Hells Angels. Now, Hells Angels isn't full gonzo, it's more so straight up reporting, but it's early gonzo because it's prior to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and it's prior to the Kentucky Derby is Decadent and Depraved. Hell's Angels is a very troubling book. It's a very shocking and horrific book. It was honestly hard to read. I had my computer read it to me. I didn't read it myself. I had my computer read it to me. And honestly, it was hard to keep listening. It's a hard book. It's a troubling book. The Hells Angels were essentially permitted to do whatever they wanted. They roamed as a pack of barbarians with little law enforcement ramifications or consequences or persecution, or they were not held accountable for their crimes, which were horrible and evil crimes, and that's all reported on in Hell's Angels. But the breakthrough for Gonzo was Hunter S. Thompson. Through a lot of his reporting, he was a sports correspondent. He was sent to the Kentucky Derby. Now he's from Louisville, Kentucky, right? This was the first time he'd been back to Louisville in a long time, and this was the first time he'd been to the Kentucky Derby in a long time, but he grew up with it, so he knew the ins and outs. He ends up getting this artist from England, Ralph Steadman, flies out. They never met before, and they go to the Kentucky Derby, and he's schooling Ralph Steadman. This is how the Kentucky Derby goes. This is what it is. People are fucking in the crowd. Motherfuckers are drunk. All kinds of crazy shit. The rich politicians have the nice area at the top where they're sitting watching the races, and then you have like the Coliseum where it's just the wild commoners, normal people. They're just literally fucking in the crowd. So he was supposed to report on the Kentucky Derby. He writes what reads like novelized fiction, a full account of him and Ralph Steadman becoming decadent and depraved in the decadence and depravity of the Kentucky Derby. They were looking for decadence and depravity and found it in themselves. They got wasted, they got high, they got fucked up, and by the end of it, you have gone through this incredible, mind altering, hallucinogenic drug trip of a ride of Hunter S. Thompson reporting on the Kentucky Derby. And I forget who in his documentary, take punch the ticket, take the ride. He says that after he turned that article in, he thought it was a failure, and someone who read it, one of his writer colleagues, said that shit is totally gonzo. And supposedly that's really where gonzo comes from. I read on Wikipedia a bunch of bullshit about where gonzo comes from, but I'm pretty sure that's it. So from that, you get the true realization of gonzo journalism in that Kentucky Derby's Decadent and Depraved article, which is available. You can go to the website Electric Typewriter or just search it, Kentucky Derby's Decadent and Depraved, and you can read the whole article because it's just one article. It's not like a full book, it's just one article. So you can go ahead and read that. And that really is the true portal of gonzo journalism. When I first got to Hunter S. Thompson last year and I first started doing the research, that was what made me adopt gonzo journalism as a writing style, but not just a style, because there's a lot of gonzo imitators. What has happened with gonzo journalism is people have taken the style in which Hunter wrote, and when they do gonzo, they're just copying his style. Drugs, alcohol, trying to write unhinged. That's not what gonzo journalism is. Gonzo journalism is a function of the medium of journalism, which is reporting. Journalism is the right of the people to be informed. We have the right to be informed on what's going on socio-politically in our country, your country, in the world, globally, in society, laws. We have the right to be informed of what's going on. We have the right to hold people in high positions accountable for what they're doing and the decisions that are made upstream, that the effects are felt downstream by us. That's journalism. Gonzo disguises the truth and exposes the truth in the same breath. It uses fiction, exaggeration, interpretation of real events, and reporting to expose controversial or risky truths that would otherwise potentially be legally dangerous to report on. It's a disguise. It's a way you mask what you're writing about and use it as and present it as fiction, but the content and the subtext of the story is real shit that you're reporting on. A great example of a true and through gonzo journalist, Stieg Larsson, the author of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and the Millennium Trilogy. Stieg Larsson was a hardcore investigative journalist. Gonzo journalism isn't parody journalism, it's investigative reporting from the inside. Becoming a part of the story, putting yourself in the narrative, going inside, witnessing the corruption, and presenting it. Stieg Larsson was a serious reporter, right? A crusading journalist who wrote against fascism, right wing extremists, violence against women, and misogyny. He wrote against neo Nazism in Sweden. He was a Swedish crusading journalist. He used crime novel fiction in his Millennium Trilogy, the Millennium series, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Girl Who Played with Fire, Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, which are some of the best-selling crime novels that have ever existed. It was a total world phenomenon. Everyone's heard of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. They adapted it into a three-part movie series starring Naomi Rapace, which is incredible. And then America even adapted one David Finch did with Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara. The American version sucks because they don't understand what the fuck Stieg Larsson was saying in his books. But even though it's crime novel fiction, he's exposing real institutional realities and crimes, real corruption, real shit. He's using fiction for the purpose of journalism. That's Gonzo. Stieg Larsson is a successful, one of the most successful post Thompson era Gonzo journalists. Very few, pretty much nobody has come out and said, I'm a Gonzo journalist. You have people who say, I'm Gonzo inspired, I'm Gonzo influenced, I'm a Thompson worshiper, they're Thompson imitators. They're not Gonzo journalists. They don't understand. Gonzo journalism is not just write like Thompson. Gonzo journalism is a different method for reporting. And that's what nobody has really done other than someone like a Stieg Larsson, who people don't say he's Gonzo. No one says Stieg Larsson's Gonzo. They say he's the goat of Scandinavian crime pulp, noir, fiction, crime fiction. But in reality, this is the Expo Files. This is his book. He had his own publication, which is what the fictional publication in the Millennium series, which is called Millennium, which the character Mikael Blomkvist, his publication that he's the editor of, that's based after Expo magazine, which was Stieg Larsson's publication that he ran. Expo File. This is the compilation of it, the Expo Files. So Expo is the real life Millennium, and he took his reporting from these articles that are compiled here in the Expo Files, and he interpreted that to fiction and presented it in the Millennium Trilogy. That's Gonzo journalism. So the true reality of Gonzo journalism is its renegade reporting. It's reporting from outside the status quo and beyond the threshold of what they say you can do. Hunter S. Thompson didn't have any rules. He was allowed to do. He wasn't that he was allowed. He did whatever he wanted. He would get signed to a story and he would write it however he fucking wanted. For Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, I believe he was sent to do some sports coverage again, or I don't remember if this was supposed to be a sports coverage story or if it really was they sent them to Las Vegas to find the American dream. But this is how Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, this is really where Gonzo was immortalized. Because Kentucky Derby and is Decadent is Depraved was just an article originally published for like a small whatever publication it was for, and then that opened the door for Gonzo. But then when he wrote Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, this is where he immortalized it and refined the style and mastered it. This is what people look to when you hear Gonzo. They look to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and of course you have the movie with Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro. But Gonzo is reporting. So Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is what comes after Hell's Angels and after Kentucky Derby's Decadent and Depraved. And also he got banished from the Hell's Angels because one of the Hell's Angels was beating his wife and beating his dog, and Hunter was like, "Hey, what the fuck are you doing?" and jumped into it, and then they ended up beating him up and then banished him, and then he wrote the book. So, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas really is what immortalizes the Gonzo style. And then eventually they do the movie Where the Buffaloes Roam with Bill Murray, who was the first one to play Hunter's persona Raul Duke, which is something Charles Bukowski also had this in universe persona of himself, Hank Chinaski, who's featured in the movie Barfly starring Mickey Rourke. And Bukowski was really the last of the beat poets, but in a way, his pulpy smut style underground reporting, from the front line of alcoholism really was a early, prehistoric version of Gonzo. And I also got to Bukowski last year as well, some drinking of red wine. Attempted to become a wino, but alcoholism is too much hard work. I didn't want to do it. So Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas immortalizes, Gonzo, and then from there, Hunter went onto the campaign trail. He wrote Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail 72, and then he has just all these books of Gonzo reporting and Gonzo journalism that he did up until he died by what is believed to have been suicide. There are some conspiracies about whether or not he really did take his own life, but as far as we know on the record, Hunter S. Thompson committed suicide in 2005. He had some, very controversial opinions on the Bush administration and 9/11, and, wrote a lot about that. Right now, I'm reading his final book, Hey Rube. This is a compilation of his Hey Rube, editorial section he had on ESPN.com, page 2, where he would report on sports, primarily football. But of course, he would do Gonzo reporting and talk about, sex, politics, and society and culture, and the way, sports reflected all of those things in society. And he would just talk about a lot of shit, a lot of hot takes in this. This is his last book that came out, Hey Rube. So I've been reading this right now. Last year, I had my computer read me Hell's Angels and the Rum Diary. I had PDFs of them, so I don't like reading PDFs and scrolling through a PDF. I'm gonna read it if it's a book, but PDF I don't like reading. So I had my computer read me Hell's Angels. Had my computer read me Rum Diary. I listened to pretty much 80 to 85% of them, but there were times where I'd fall asleep, wake up, not know where I was at, kind of backtrack a little bit. So I digested most of them, and that was the early Thompson. I was glad that that's all I had access to last year because I was able to get that Kentucky Derby's Deccan is in Depraved. I already adopted Gonzo from that. And then once I read Hell's Angels and Rum Diary, I got his early fiction, which is pre-Gonzo, and then Hell's Angels, which was also pre-Gonzo. But now I'm in his full refined final version of Gonzo. And then also I have Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the immortal early first, refined Gonzo. So he has plenty of shit for me to research, discover. And then also I got into the Millennium Trilogy. I had read some of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo back in the day. I used to have Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Girl Play with Fire. I had watched the American movie when I was like 12 when it came out. Didn't really get it. Recently, I watched the trilogy of the Expo Files. I will be discussing more on Stieg Larsson in the Millennium Trilogy as we expand into deeper, explanations of Gonzo. And also, what I'm going to be talking about with this podcast, you might wonder why it's called Scumbag Journalism 101. After a year of, immersing myself into the Gonzo tradition, devoting myself as a Gonzo journalist and writing, editing, formatting, and publishing 25 original works, 25 books to the credit of my publishing house, Total Shock Fiction. I also created my own blog imprint, or blog publication, called Ink Runs Red, which I host on Substack. You can go visit that at mrshock.substack.com. Ink Runs Red is my blog site, publication serial. Think Rolling Stone meets Fangoria for everything Gonzo and Shockverse. Shockverse is my own original universe of shock in which my stories are set. Now, what I've done with Gonzo as a Gonzo journalist is I've updated Gonzo for the post-internet late stage capitalism era, and I call that scumbag journalism. So I recently coined this term. I'm working on volume 2 of my series Shock Therapy, which is a series that I had created the idea for it last year. And then my 25th completed book, which was mostly written between Thanksgiving and the end of of this previous year, 2025. And then there was a few final chapters I wrote the first week of 2026, but I still consider that the 25th book of last year because most of it I wrote last year. That's Shock Therapy. And you can search Mr. Shock Chronicles on Amazon. That's Mr. spelled out. Mr. Shock Chronicles. Search that on Amazon. Click my author name and it'll bring up all my books. You can go right to Shock Therapy, or again, you can go to Ink Runs Red on Substack. That's at Mr. Shock or mrshock.substack.com. Go to my profile and the link to all my books are on there and it'll take you over to Amazon to Shock Therapy. You know, with the algorithm, if you search Shock Therapy, it brings up other books and shit. But if you search Mr. Shock Chronicles, I have 4 volumes of those. It will bring up me up, and then you can click on my author name. It'll take you over to Shock Therapy. Shock Therapy is my volume 1 um, for what I'm now defining as scumbag journalism or new gonzo. So this is Gonzo 2.0. I'm calling it scumbag journalism. In the world of professional reporting, this is the thing: journalism is dead. The ethics of journalism is dead. It's been dead, and Hunter knew that. Reporting is dead because it has been bought out. Reporting and journalism is narrative policing. It's controlled by credential cartels, and they are controlling the narrative. They're not allowing anybody to report the real fucking truth, the real motherfucking exposés to expose the corruption. Motherfuckers go to these universities, get journalism degrees, and get hired by these publications, and their whole shit is policed, and the narrative is controlled, and they're paid by the advertisers and by the corporations and by the politicians to say what the fuck is allowed to be presented. Nobody's doing guerrilla from the grassroots underground indie reporting straight to the fucking masses. Only on Substack do you see indie reporting, but even still, you don't have people just saying straight up, I'm a gonzo journalist. I've seen a lot of strong gonzo writers on Substack, and there are some true gonzo writers on there, but they're not necessarily doing journalism. They're more so doing like self-reporting of their own experiences, but written in a true gonzo style, not a gonzo imitation, but a true gonzo style. Um, Shout out Gonzo Girl and shout out JD. I think her name's JD Long Schlong. Her shit is also very gonzo too. So what I've done is updated it because on paper, in the professional world of writing and publications, I don't have a 4-year journalism degree or 3 to 8 years experience. So I'm a quote unquote unemployable scumbag. However, I've written 30 books, 29, 30 books that I've written, edited, format, published myself. I have my own publishing imprint. I've been writing for 15 years, publishing for 5, going on 6. I went to college, junior college, did a semester of college reporting as a reporter for the campus newspaper that had been around since the 70s. I was awarded MVP of the paper. I had 14 stories to print, more stories than that, concluding the ones that went straight to online. I did online reporting on a number of topics, including we did a emergency story on we had a sexual assault that occurred on campus, and I was on the ground the day it happened on campus, talking to people, collecting interviews, and reporting on that. As soon as it happened, emergency newsroom, breaking news. We did that straight to the website that day to spread awareness to let people know that that had happened on campus. There had been a sexual assault on campus. So um, the reality and the way I see it, me getting that amount of on the in the field reporting. I also was a sports correspondent like Hunter S. Thompson. I covered women's sports, women's soccer, volleyball, basketball. I covered all the women's sports. That was one of my beats was women's sports. So I was a sports correspondent, and I was also a college journalist and reporter and a campus reporter, and was awarded MVP for my efforts. That to me is worth way more value than, oh, I did 4 years of journalism. Da, 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 da. You know what I'm saying? Real experience over credentials. Credentials is accreditation and merit that's given in name and in title. And yes, if you're getting experience while you're doing that, that's great. But with the internet, you don't need to go to a university. You don't need to go to a college to get any of this information. You can do all this shit yourself. I took the whole entire last year to immerse myself in gonzo journalism and expand what I had already learned in journalism as a college reporter back in college when I was fucking 20, and applied that to what I know as an author and as a novelist and as a prosist, and combine that with gonzo journalism. And now I'm redefining journalism in the era where nobody is allowed to report from outside the credential cartel. If you don't have a press pass and you're not co-signed by a publication, they're not letting you in the door. But thanks to the internet, you don't even need to get in the door. You can do all your reporting from a laptop and a phone. Millennium Saga trilogy style, nigga. This is Mikkel Blomqvist, nigga. This is Lisbeth Salander. I'm doing investigation off my motherfucking laptop, nigga. The Millennium Trilogy, nigga, is the real Expo Files. This is real gonzo. This is scumbag journalism, nigga. They might view me as an unemployable scumbag. Look at my writing. My writing is better than the shit they call professional. And my shit is speaking the real truth. My shit is reporting to the fucking masses and to the public, informing them of the shit, the lies that are fucking protecting the corruption. That's scumbag journalism. So this podcast, Scumbag Journalism 101, is a running reporting of what I'm writing, what I'm reporting on, and not necessarily, this is not reactive journalism. I'm not reporting on the fucking news headlines. You can listen to the bullshit news for those narratives. I'm going to talk about what's happening in this world, what's happening culturally, what's happening socio-politically and psychologically, and things that have happened in the past that we're not looking at, which can be valuable today, such as a Hunter S. Thompson and the gonzo journalism, which anyone can pick up gonzo journalism, become a gonzo journalist or scumbag journalist. And that's what I'm putting forth, scumbag journalism. We are picking up Hunter S. Thompson's legacy of gonzo journalism, Stieg Larsson's legacy of crusading journalism, renegade reporting from outside the credential cartels and exposing the lies to reveal the truth and to inform people, which is what journalism is. Journalism is not credential, it's a function. They've told us that you can't be a journalist unless you're accredited by a university. That's a fucking lie. We've had journalists since fucking medieval and prehistoric times. There's always been motherfuckers who were on site getting the information and bringing it back to the people. They were once called shamans. They were once called medicine men. Now they call motherfuckers hikikomoris and otakus. But guess what? You know what you are as an otaku or a hikikomori who's obsessed with fandom, pop culture, media, movies, TV, film? That's pattern recognition. You can utilize that to be a journalist. You can utilize that. The fact that you've been outcasted and shunned from the system, you have a perspective and a worldview that can be valuable through pattern recognition. You can look at what's going on and you can report as a scumbag journalist, as a gonzo journalist. You can report on what the fuck is going on. That's what I've done. I dropped out of high school to rap, became a hikikomori. I'm still otaku to this day. Went to college, became a fucking internet radio DJ, became a content creator who had done underground YouTube shit for years and years and years, 15 fucking years. Became a self-published author, wrote and published 30 books, and now today, I'm a scumbag journalist. I have my own publishing house. I have my own fucking publication, blog site. I have a YouTube channel that I've amassed over 200,000 views. I got 300 plus subscribers. I got subscribers on my Substack. Yeah, I'm underground. Yeah, I'm guerrilla. Yeah, I'm grassroots. But you know what? That don't mean shit. That means I'm reaching the people who need to be reached. And I'm going to continue to reach more. That's why I'm launching Scumbag Journalism 101 is the most shocking podcast on the internet. Because there's no hiding the truth here. We're exposing the lies. We're exposing the corruption. We're exposing the credential cartels. They're saying you can't work a job based on your credentials, based on this, based on that. They're not even giving you entry level. This is colonialism, ladies and gentlemen. This is colonialism. They're using compliance and conformity as a precedence to get access. And if you don't have that, they're denying you resources to survive. That's colonialism. That's oppression. That's fascism. That's a crime against humanity. And it's illegal for them to do it. So you got to question the legality of what the fuck is legal and what's not, and what the fuck really is going on. Because credential cartels aren't only policing journalism, they're policing employment right now. People are getting fired from their jobs and they can't get another job. People got degrees and still can't get a job because it's about compliancy, conformity, who you know, and what networks you're a part of. And if you're not an insider, they're locking you out. And that's colonialism. That's what a third world country looks like. So this is Scumbag Journalism 101. This is the entry point. And with that being said, until next time, remain shocked and go pick up Shock Therapy on Amazon. Again, that's Mr. Shock Chronicles. Search that on Amazon. Go to NPanda code. That's Pandit, Pandit Cole, and Pandit Cole, and pick up shock therapy. Are you shocked yet?